Have you ever been to a theme park and queued up for a ride only to find out that you are not quite tall enough to be allowed in? Have you ever wanted to watch a movie or play a video game and been told that you're not old enough? Perhaps you've sat on the subs bench for a whole match and never made it onto the pitch. If anyone has ever told you that you are too short or too young or too slow or just not good enough, then you probably know exactly how one visitor felt many years ago in Jerusalem when he wanted to visit the temple but was told no entry. Why? Do you think I'm not rich enough? The visitor, dressed head to toe in gold, asked the officer blocking the doorway. The sour-faced officer folded his arms across his broad chest. No entry. Rules are rules. Perhaps you think I'm not important enough, the rich man said, casually glancing at his chariot, the most expensive the city had ever seen. The officer shook his head. Perhaps you think I'm not smart enough. The other visitors in the queue raised their eyebrows. They had already heard about him around town, speaking and reading several languages fluently. He was clearly better educated than the rest of them put together. There was only one thing left. He took a deep breath. Perhaps you think I'm not man enough. The officer gave the slightest of nods and a hint of a smirk. Rules are rules, he repeated. The tall, important, rich, smart, but unwelcome visitor raised his voice so that everyone in the bustling temple plaza could hear just how outraged he was. I may have no beard, I may have a high-pitched voice, I may not be married or have children, but no man is more dedicated to Queen and country than me. I, Senator of Sudan, Treasurer of the Queen of Candace, member of the Sudanese Royal Court, assigned eunuch, guest of your government, have just been at the palace negotiating the transnational trade deal of the century. Are you man enough to do that? Well, are you? In all my days of travelling, I've never been refused entry anywhere. This, Jerusalem, is a disgrace. Beware the wrath of Sudan. With that, the snub senator swept down the stairs and straight into his waiting chariot. Maybe he would tear up that trade deal. Perhaps he would send some Sudanese soldiers to terrorise the town. He could even wage full-on war. Now, it was usual for a sudden surge of street vendors to descend onto any visitor seen leaving the temple. They knew all the tricks. They knew all the tricks in the book to make money out of tourists, especially rich, important ones. But seeing how angry the senator was, nobody dared to go anywhere near him, except for one brave young girl. As Jerusalem watched in surprise, she walked straight up to the chariot, curtsied politely, and placed a huge, ornate souvenir in the senator's lap. Good afternoon, sir, the little girl said. You're holding in your hands the longest and most wonderful scroll we have, originally written by Isaiah the prophet. The words are over 700 years old and are the founding principles for this temple. My father spent a whole year copying it by hand with nothing but the finest inks from around the world. Are you crazy, little girl? The senator picked up the souvenir and held it out to her. Didn't you just see the way I was treated? You can take your scroll and your temple and your rules, and the rules are wrong. The scroll seller interrupted in a quiet voice. What did you say? I've tried telling the temple leaders, but they shoo me away because I'm a girl. But their rules are wrong, she said, and pushed the scroll back into his lap. You should read it, sir. It will change your life. The senator looked the girl up and down. She seemed too young and too poor to have been educated. Do you really expect me to believe you have read this enormous scroll, he asked. I've read all the scrolls, sir, the girl said proudly. I read the text aloud to my father as he writes. If we get one letter wrong, the whole scroll gets destroyed. We're very precise. Read chapter 56 for yourself. You'll see I'm right. They should have let you into the temple. The senator smiled at the thought of the temple leaders with their long beards and their fixed rules being outsmarted by this poor little girl. That was why he pulled out of his tunic the bag of gold he'd been planning on generously donating to the temple and handed the whole lot to the scroll seller. It was more than she would have expected to earn in a lifetime. As his elephant tugged the chariot away, he glanced back to see the surprised look on everyone's faces. Sure enough, his gift had got everyone talking. The senator smiled smugly to himself, made himself comfortable for the long, boring journey back to Sudan, and opened the scroll at chapter 1. Many hours later, and 53 chapters later, his head ached. He'd come across wars and battle, gobbling graves, fiery angels, smoking cities, soaring eagles, flattened mountains, serpents and sea monsters, even dead people coming back to life. It was the weirdest thing he'd ever read. What did it all mean? The senator carried on reading his strange scroll until he heard a noise behind him. Someone was shouting. Someone was running towards him. Someone was after him. Faster, faster, the senator shouted to the driver. Bandit alert! What happened next would change the history of Africa and the world forever. The senator was from a place called Sudan, which at that time was known as the rich and powerful empire of Ethiopia. It stretched out so far that many considered it to be the end of the world. The original story is written in Acts chapter 8 in the Bible, and you can find out what happens next in chapter 7 of my new book, Whistlestop Tales. I hope you enjoy it. It's lovely to meet you.